The obvious question is, again, the North-South divide, and the lack of support shown to Italy when the crisis was overwhelming Italy. But of course, Italy was in that same position with the migrant crisis, with a lack of support from the rest of Europe when Italy was being overwhelmed with hundreds of thousands of migrants crossing the Mediterranean. So this has been a recurring issue in European politics, this North-South divide, and whether Europe is prepared to, whether Northern Europe is prepared to support Southern Europe, whether it's Italy and Greece with the financial crisis, with the migrant crisis, or now with Italy and Spain with the coronavirus crisis. That's a question for Europeans to settle. I mean, it seems to me as an outsider that the rhetorical commitment to a united Europe is much greater than the true political commitment to a united Europe. Europeans don't seem to be willing to, put their money where their mouths are. And we see that, I mean, forget coronavirus. We see that in the arguments over the EU budget. This is something that I flagged before Brexit negotiations even started. I said that what Theresa May's true trump card in the Brexit negotiations was that when Britain left, who's going to replace the British contribution to the budget? And I said, well, the Netherlands and Germany are going to argue that they shouldn't have to pay anything else. Meanwhile, countries like Poland are going to argue that they shouldn't have their subsidy reduced. And this is, in fact, exactly what has happened. So although we're now focusing on arguments over face masks between European countries, that budget crisis is still there and hasn't been resolved. Now, if Europe really were one country in the way that the United States is, there would be much larger redistributions. And in fact, in the United States, the federal government has been redistributing medical supplies to the states that most need it. So at the very time when Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, is politically grandstanding against Donald Trump, the Republican president of the United States, quietly, the U.S. public health services are reapportioning ventilators and face masks to New York City because that's where they're needed. And there's no internal politics around that. A depot in Texas can't slap an order on a shipment of federal ventilators to New York. It's one country. And however much it may appear from the outside that Americans are at each other's throats, in reality, the bureaucracy and the system just continues to work and continues to reapportion. I mean, the ventilators go from the South to New York City. The money, I should add, goes from New York City to the South. There's a massive cross-subsidy of states in the United States. Europe hasn't gotten there yet. I don't know if Europe ever will. That's a question for Europeans. But I think seeing as an outsider, for me, there's just this enormous disconnect between the rhetoric of Europeanists and the reality of their willingness to spend money and resources to behave as if they are one people.